Go Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Coming from Harrow, where the local authority has seen its grant from the government reduced by some 97% in 8 years, it's pretty difficult to find much to cheer in this statement. Harrow's core spending power per head this financial year is estimated to be £170 lower than the London average and £75 lower than the rest of England average. In short, we're one of the lowest funded boroughs in London and nationally. Now, despite Number 10's talk of levelling up, there doesn't appear to be any grounds for optimism yet that the Chancellor's budget or future spending reviews are likely to lift Harrow up to a level similar to our neighbours in Hillingdon, Hertfordshire and Barnet in terms of spending power. Now, to be fair to those neighbours and indeed other councils across the rest of England, it's not as if any of them are hugely well funded either. Councils in England face an £8 billion funding gap by 2025. Inevitably, more and more councils are struggling to balance the books, and more councils are using reserves to plug budget holes. Now, Tory Northamptonshire has become the poster boy for troubled councils everywhere. And it's true that incompetence and an overzealous approach to privatisation were certainly two particular local factors that drove the bankruptcy there. But the reality is that all councils are having to divert money away from youth services, public health, parks and libraries to fund just the most basic services such as street cleaning, social care or homelessness, and even these are stripped down to the bone. In the long term, that's not only a false economy, but it impacts on our constituents' well-being and sense of contentment with life in modern Britain. It means some of the most vulnerable, those desperately in need of care or skilled specialist support in schools, will not get the backup they need. And in the 21st century, in one of the richest nations in the world, it's difficult to fathom why ministers are so comfortable about that situation. If we're really to give the towns and villages of England, the counties and communities of our great country, the control and transformation of fortunes so many are desperate to see, then revitalising local councils and devolving more power more consistently to even the least fashionable of our town halls is a first essential step. That great slogan, "Take back control," that spoke to so many, did not for most, I suspect, mean taking back powers from Brussels merely to allow Whitehall and Downing Street to continue to lord it over the rest of the country even more. Now, in recent years, the pace of devolution in England has slowed. The Northern Powerhouse was a wonderfully evocative turn of phrase, but the lack of funding that followed its invention rightly generated much scepticism. So a new surge of energy with real financial power being devolved to Northern councils seems overdue, even from my distant southern viewpoint. And if that's what the department's white paper is set to offer, then that would seem to be some progress. But I happen to think that London and London councils need the same and more, again as steps to a genuine transfer of direct power back to the people. A new settlement of powers to help London tackle its major challenges, such as growing inequality and ever-increasing poverty, the skills shortage, the climate and housing crisis, even violent crime. All require the Mayor, the Assembly and crucially local councils to have access to greater powers to create the London-specific solutions to London's problems. London generates more wealth for Britain's people and indeed contains more of our citizens than any other part of the UK. Indeed, London generated 1/3 of the UK's total GDP in 2018, yet we still don't have full control over skills or even benefits budgets. Now, I don't question the need for Wales, Scotland or Northern Ireland to continue to benefit from the Barnett formula, but I do think that the people of Barnet, and indeed the whole of London, should have our own funding formula too. London is the most expensive place to live and work in the UK, yet our Mayor and Assembly don't have the powers to legislate on such crucial issues here, whereas in Scotland, through Holyrood, they can do. In any future constitutional settlement, the United Kingdom's southern powerhouse, its capital city, London, should be given the same powers, in my view, as our national friends in Holyrood, the Senedd and Stormont. Why, for example, can't London have the same powers now as the Scottish Parliament? Clearly, there isn't the same national issue driving the debate about where power best lies. But the size of the population in our capital, the scale of challenges that our population faces, demands, I would argue, similar treatment. Why not the right to legislate in London, in the Assembly and for the Mayor on all housing and planning matters? Why not the same income tax varying powers as in Scotland? Why do Londoners have to beg Whitehall for action to tackle air pollution when the Mayor and City Hall should be given full control to put in place a joined-up strategy to tackle all the various triggers of the pollution challenge in London? Too many of the powers they need are still locked up tight in the great departments of state just down the road from here. Why can't London have more control over how our water and sewage services are delivered and what we pay for them? There are more people living in absolute poverty in London than anywhere else in the UK, yet London's local politicians in the Assembly and in the form of the Mayor are not allowed to dictate in the end what the London living wage should be. The right to greater devolution is one that all England deserves, but London is the southern powerhouse of our United Kingdom, and its continued success is even more essential post-Brexit. Now, I recognise that with Rory Stewart's sleeping bag having more cut through than Sean Bailey at the moment, there won't be much immediate enthusiasm in Number 10 for shifting more power to City Hall. But London's success benefits the whole country. The home counties in particular benefit from London's city-state success. All those Tory shires benefit from Labour London, and vice versa. When London grows, the rest of the country does too. And the reverse again is true too. When London's problems inhibit our potential, it's not just in the end Londoners who suffer. It took more than 40 years to start building work on Crossrail. Given the demands on our public transport system, we cannot afford to waste another 40 years before work on Crossrail 2 gets underway. Levelling up, city deals and the Northern Powerhouse are all indicators of the slow dance in our own very British way towards federalism. London has an essential role to play with the nations of the UK in recasting the Union for the 21st century. For too long, our country has been seen as comprising England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. I've always thought we needed to empower the towns and cities of England alongside Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and London. There is growing recognition that to secure the Union then, the United Kingdom has got to reform and change. London can't be ignored on that journey, and neither can the rest of England's towns and cities either. A better funding settlement than today's shabby offering is long overdue, but a government that wants to defend the Union should set out as well clearly and soon a package of legislative and fiscal devolution that will turbocharge the federal journey our country needs to undertake.